Bill Wallace walked through the field he'd purchased from Lyndon Tucker, looking for a suitable site to build a cottage on. On the north end of the field was a knoll that Bill thought had a lot of potential. There was a great view, and it was high enough to be above any above-average spring torrents. Lyndon Tucker's old house and buildings sat on the hill to the east, quaint, gray, serene, and picturesque, amongst the elms and apple trees. An old swing sat beside the lilac bushes in front of Lyndon's house. It was plain to see the house was going in the ground, falling down. When Bill Wallace stood on his knoll and looked southwest, he could see at least a mile of river, maybe more. The immediate river was lined on both sides by the green fields of Brennan siding. In the distance, the river seemed to flow from beneath the forested hills. It could be a scene from Vermont, thought Bill Wallace, but it doesn't have the mountains. Fine with me. I never cared much for the mountains anyway. A river's all I need. If the river happens to have Atlantic salmon in it, that's a bonus. Bill Wallace had spent many happy childhood days playing, fishing, and canoeing on the White River in Vermont. The White was a tributary of the Connecticut. The Connecticut hadn't had salmon in it for 100 years. The Connecticut River had gone the way of all New England rivers, with the exception maybe of the Penobscot in Maine. Overfishing, electrical dams, and industrial pollution had turned what used to be some of the greatest Atlantic salmon rivers in the world into sewers for human waste, into dumps for humans to throw their old tires, sometimes whole cars, mattresses, bean cans, dead animals, and the occasional human. It'll happen here in time, Bill predicted. It's the American way. Industry will move in, people will follow, and that will be it. Bingo, the 51st state. Bill Wallace left his knoll and headed south until he came to the cedar fence that separated the Lyndon Tucker farm from the Lester Burns farm. The Lester Burns farm, thought Bill, another gold mine. Bill Wallace was amazed that nobody had jumped on the opportunity and purchased this land before now. Unknown to most Americans, thank God, he thought. And the rich Canadians, are there any? Sure there are. Do they not know what they have here? Probably not. They probably go to Disneyland on vacations. It's an investment that you'd have to be a fool to ignore, thought Bill. Christ, this is one American that can't ignore it. I'm buying the Lester Burns property, regardless of the cost. The cost, ha! I'll probably get that for nothing, too. Bill Wallace wanted to be alone for a few minutes, and had convinced Lyndon Tucker to take it easy, have a nap in the canoe. I'll just be a few minutes. Bill, once he was satisfied with his exploration of the newly purchased property, went back to where Lyndon was waiting, half asleep in the hot July sun. Lyndon climbed from that canoe and held it steady for Bill to climb in the front. Then Lyndon stood in the back and pulled, plop, swish, back toward the Cabbage Island Salmon Club. Newcastle's a nice little town, Lyndon said Bill. Oh, yeah. Stinks awful bad, though. I guess they should have built that pulp mill further away from the town. Further away, yeah. Should have built it further away. That pulp mill is American-owned, I'll bet on that, thought Bill. Helen MacDonald was making corned beef and cabbage stew in the kitchen of the Cabbage Island Salmon Club. Although Helen was preoccupied with peeling potatoes, carrots, turnips, and parsnips, she was being more than detective than the cook. Then she could have been Sam Spade, Sherlock Holmes, or Charlie Chan. Detective Helen MacDonald was fitting together the blueberry pie mystery. Somebody took me by pie from that windowsill, she thought, and the next day somebody took the one with the X-lax in it. Rex, me dog, has a bad case of the runs, and that somebody that took the pie didn't seem to have a complaint in the world. It seemed clear to me now that someone might have fed the pie to poor old Rex. Now that someone has the gall to be hanging around here all day with that young Lillian. Boys, she must think a lot of herself to be hanging around with the likes of that tramp. I can't let him get away with it, she thought. I have to teach him a lesson. Helen MacDonald would get her opportunity to get even with Dryfly Ramsay sooner than she thought. A knock sounded on the kitchen door. Come in, called Helen. In stepped Lillian Wallace, followed closely by Dryfly Ramsay. Hello, Miss MacDonald, said Lillian. G'day, Helen, said Dryfly. Hello, I was just putting together your supper, miss. Oh, good. What are we having tonight? We're having good old-fashioned corned beef and cabbage. Oh, good. Your father likes me corned beef and cabbage. I cook for him every time he comes up. What can I do for you, young lady? Well, would you mind putting on an extra plate tonight? No trouble. Who's staying for supper? Lyndon? I've asked Dryfly to dine with us, and he's accepted. Oh, well, sure. You don't mind? Oh, well, no. Helen MacDonald thought, how can they stand having that no-good weasel around? I'd put the run to him if it was me. Good, said Lillian. You sure you don't mind? No, not at all. Thank you, Miss MacDonald. I appreciate it. Does your father know that Dry's staying? Not yet, but he won't mind. Will you be having dessert, Miss MacDonald? Well, sure. What would you like? Oh, I don't care. Whatever you decide is fine with me. Well, I don't have any more of the blueberries I spent good money on, said Helen, looking directly at Dryfly, but I could put some chocolate pudding. You like chocolate pudding? Oh, yes, very much. Do you like chocolate pudding, Dryfly? Yep, anything's okay for me. Good. You can have all you want. See, I told you she wouldn't care if you stayed for supper, Dry, said Lillian. I didn't like the way she looked at me when she mentioned the blueberry pie. I think she's out to get me. What makes you think that? I don't know. She don't like me very much. Dryfly Ramsay, I do believe you have an inferiority complex. Maybe, said Dryfly. Dryfly hadn't the slightest idea what an inferiority complex was, but he liked the sound of the words. I'll have to remember inferiority complex, he thought. The two teenagers went to the veranda of the cabin Bill and Lillian occupied and sat on the railing to watch the river. When your father gets his camp built, you'll be able to come up here all the time, said Dryfly. Would you like staying up here? I like it up here very much. Are you from a big city? Stockbridge? No, it's a little town, not much bigger than Blackville. You'd like Stockbridge. Have you ever been to a big city? I've been to New York and Boston. I went to Los Angeles once and Miami a couple of times. Ever been to Wheeling? No, where's Wheeling? Down where you live somewhere. Wheeling, West Virginia. Oh, West Virginia, that's in the south. Who do you know in West Virginia? Nobody, we just hear it on the radio all the time. Does anyone around here have a television? No. Dryfly had only heard of television. He would not get a chance to watch a television for another year. Bob Nash would be the first person in Brennan Siding to get a television. I never saw a television in my life, said Dryfly. Television is wonderful. You'd like it, said Lillian. What do kids do around here? Walk up and down the road mostly. Shad and me spend a lot of time on the river in the summer. You love the river, don't you? Yeah, the river's all there is around here. Could you ever leave it? Mostly everybody that leaves comes back. I don't know, maybe. Lillian eyed the thin, homely boy. His hair is greasy, she thought. A little shampoo would change his whole appearance. Where do you take a bath, Dryfly? She asked. In the river during the summer. In the winter, we don't bathe much. Once a month, maybe. Can you swim in the river? If you can swim, you can swim in the river. It's no different than any place else. There's a little bit of a current. But isn't it polluted? No, it ain't polluted, I don't think. Would you like to go for a swim, Dry? Yeah, sure, okay. Lillian went inside, grabbed a comb, a towel, some soap, and a bottle of shampoo. I'll clean him up for dinner, she thought. I'll wash that smelly shirt for him, too. It will dry quickly in the sun. Lillian and Dryfly walked hand in hand to the river. They swam and bathed, and Lillian washed Dryfly's shirt and shampoo, rinsed it, and washed it again. They took one last swim, then sat on a boulder to dry off. Lillian combed Dryfly's hair, parting it in the middle. I like how you part your hair in the middle, she said. Shadrack had been looking almost directly at it, and still hadn't seen it. Then, when he did see it, he couldn't believe his eyes. A lad could walk by it a million times and never see it, thought Shad. Amazed. It's like a part of the hill. He asked, Is that your camp? Damn. Now, I'll never have any peace and quiet, thought Nutbeam. The little bugger sees it. It's great. Shadrack was still feasting his eyes on the little half-cave, half-cabin Nutbeam called home. The camp, 2/3 buried into the hill, with the moss-covering roof running parallel to the hill, was the smartest hideout Shadrack had ever seen. Nutbeam was very proud of his camp. He had put hundreds of hours into its construction, but Shadrack's open, boyish enthusiasm was something Nutbeam had never anticipated. The awe and admiration in Shadrack's eyes was something to Nutbeam, and he found himself turning to face what Shad was seeing. Made it myself, said Nutbeam. Wow, how long you lived here? Never mind. Some lot of work in a camp like that, said Shadrack. Hard work, said Nutbeam. Nutbeam sighed. What's the use, he thought. The little bugger sees it. The game is up. Just wait till Dry sees it, said Shadrack. I don't want you bringing no one else here, you understand? You a criminal? Asked Shad. No, I just don't like people around me. You wouldn't mind a few people, would you, Nutbeam? No, I don't want no people, I tell ya. Just maybe me and Dry and Dad and a few more. How much to keep your mouth shut? Oh, I couldn't take your money from you, Nutbeam, said Shad, once again in that sing-song, how much you willing to pay voice. How much? Well, can I look inside it, Nutbeam? No, what's the matter, Nutbeam? You'll bring everyone back here and they'll laugh and make fun of me. Because your ears, among other things. No one cares about your big floppy ears, Nutbeam. I'll give you $5 to keep quiet. No one will laugh at you, Nutbeam. $6. Of course, you can never tell about some people. $7. Bert Totter's an awful man for laughing. $8 and that's it. It is such a nice place, said Shadrack. It'd be a shame if Greg Allen found out about it being on his property. $10. Well, okay, Nutbeam, I'll have to tell Dryfly. Bad as I hate him for stealing me woman, I'll have to tell him. No, tell nobody. Him and me will come and see you once in a while, Nutbeam. I don't want you bringing no one back here. Just Dryfly, Nutbeam. What do you want to bring him back here for? Nutbeam knew very well who Dryfly was. He'd heard him play guitar many times. For $10, I won't tell a soul back here, Nutbeam, except for Dryfly. Him and me will be the only ones to know. What to stop him from telling everybody? Oh, you know, might have to give him some little thing. How do you know he can be trusted? Oh, you can trust Dryfly, Nutbeam. Never did a thing wrong in his life. Leave anything at all laying around and try to be the last person in the world to ever touch it. I don't like it, said Nutbeam. Nutbeam was being blackmailed, and he knew it. When the Atlantic salmon leave the ocean to swim the fresh waters, rivers to spawn, they stop feeding. They don't feed again until after they've laid their eggs, which sometimes takes 3 or 4 months. You can fish over these pregnant fish with all the juicy fat flies, bugs, and worms you want, but you might as well try to water a horse that isn't thirsty. They'll refuse to eat. Occasionally, these pregnant fish will make a pass at a fly, a roll, and on occasion, they may even go as far as to kill the fly. However, this is really nothing more than recreation. It is these sports-minded salmon, the jocks, that anglers seek. You might say that anglers clean up on the jocks of the school. Palidin Ramsay was sure of only one thing. There had been 4 jocks in the school that rested in Dr. McDowell's salmon pool. Palidin Ramsay had 4 salmon laying dead on the beach. Palidin was very optimistic. It could be working, he thought, but I'm still not sure. There might be some other reason why the fishing's so good today. I'll have to try different flies. Maybe any fly hook, magnetic or not, would take these fish. I need more flies. Palidin made a little pool out of rocks at the water's edge. He put 3 of his salmon in it and covered them up with grass and leaves to keep the sun from spoiling them, then headed for the footbridge with the 4th. He carried the salmon directly to Bernie Hanley's stores. "Boys, what do you got there?" said Bernie Hanley when he saw the 10-pounder Palidin had with him. "Ain't that a nice one? Just caught it," Palidin proudly announced. "Want to buy it?" "Well, by cripes, I could do with a feed of salmon. How much do you want for it?" "Want 3 fly hooks." 3 fly hooks? Well, that's a little steep. 75 cents apiece. 75, $1.50, $2.25. Well, I'll give you $2. "No, sorry, I'll just take it home." "Okay, 3 fly hooks." Bernie Hanley paid 25 cents per fly hook to Bert Totter for tying them. Bernie Hanley was actually getting the salmon for 75 cents, $1 if you included the fly hook George had stolen from him earlier. I want a butterfly, a black bear hair with a green butt, and a costume. 3 different patterns, along with the blue charm George had stolen for him earlier, would greatly enhance the experiment. Palidin headed back to Dr. McDowell's pool. When he got back to the river, he tied on the butterfly and fished for what he figured to be about 15 minutes. Nothing happened. He then took out his lodestone and magnetized the hook of the butterfly. He made a cast. Bang, splash, a salmon grabbed the butterfly. He landed the salmon and tried the same experiment with the costume. 15 minutes with the regular hook produced nothing. He magnetized the hook and was into a salmon, a grills, after just a few minutes. It was a very exciting experience for Palidin. He found himself wanting to run home and tell everyone he met, to share his wealth, so to speak. He fought the urge and tied on the black bear hair with the green butt. He performed the same experiment. He achieved the same results. He now had 4 salmon and 2 grills, more than he could carry. He would have to make 2 trips. I'll give Shad one, he thought, and take the rest home. If this keeps up, I'll start selling. I'll buy me a rod of my own, sell some more, and buy a car. I'll live for a living. I'll fish for a living. Dryfly ate Helen MacDonald's corned beef stew with gusto. He was very hungry. He hadn't eaten all day, and it was getting late. Americans eat awful late, he thought. Helen MacDonald had been very careful not to get Dryfly's bowl of chocolate pudding mixed up with the bowls she had prepared for Bill and Lillian Wallace. Dryfly Ramsay's chocolate pudding was laced with X-lax. Not too much, Helen thought, but enough to teach him a lesson, enough to keep him running for a while. During dinner, everyone was in a good mood. Bill Wallace was happy, and so was Lillian. Dryfly, although a little uptight about his own table manners, was also happy. The stew was good and the pudding perfect. Helen MacDonald was a good cook. The topic of conversation, the common denominator, was the river and the salmon. Bill Wallace asked questions and Dryfly answered the best he could. Dryfly didn't know much about salmon, so most of his answers were inspired by the many stories he had heard during long winter evenings standing around listening to the men talk in Bernie Hanley's store. There used to be a lot of salmon, said Dryfly. One time Bert Totter was wading the river with a horse and a wagon. The salmon were so thick that they were getting caught on the spokes of the wagon. As the wheels turned, the salmon kept flipping up into the box. Bert Totter got enough salmon for the winter, just wading in the river. Bill Wallace laughed loud and strong. Both he and Lillian thought it was a great story. Dryfly, liking the laughter, said, "You used to have to get behind a tree to tie your hook on." More laughter. Dryfly blushed, but he was hot. That was a dry summer, he said. The salmon used to come ashore for a drink. More laughter. "What's the biggest salmon you've ever seen?" asked Lillian. "Well, I don't know how much it weighed, but it was as long as this table," said Dryfly. "It was stuck to an eagle." "It was stuck to an eagle?" "Yeah, the eagle had locked its claws in the salmon's back and wouldn't let go. The salmon dived deep and drowned the eagle. The salmon must have been too heavy for the eagle to lift. We found the both of them washed up on the shore down by Tooney's Brook." "Is that a true story?" asked Bill. "True as I'm settin' here," said Dryfly, and indeed the story was true. "You know, I haven't caught a salmon all week." "I can't imagine what I'm doing wrong," said Bill. "You'll get one," said Dryfly. "Salmon are funny fish. Once John Caston fished all week with a sport and didn't catch a thing. Then one day he was setting in the canoe and a salmon jumped right in alongside the sport. John killed the salmon and it turned out to be the only one the sport took back with him. That was the only fish they caught all week. That too was a true story." When dinner was over, the three retired to the veranda. Bill gave Dryfly a pack of Lucky Strikes. Bill and Dryfly smoked and talked. Lillian smiled and laughed and looked very pretty. Both Bill and Dryfly loved Lillian Wallace very much. 10 o'clock rolled around and Bill hinted that it was time for Dryfly to go home. 10 o'clock was not late for Lillian, but Bill wanted to discuss a few things with her in private. "Well, I guess I'd be going," said Dryfly. "I'll walk a little way with you," said Lillian. "Good night," said Bill. "Good night, Bill," said Dryfly. When they were sure the night was hiding from Bill's vision, Dryfly and Lillian held hands. They walked to the edge of the Cabbage Island Salmon Club property and sat at the base of a pine tree. "I had a wonderful day," said Lillian. "Me too," said Dryfly. "I like you very much," said Lillian. "I like you too," said Dryfly. "I think my father likes you too." "You think?" Lillian leaned and kissed Dryfly, one cool little peck on the cheek. It was the first time anyone other than his mother had ever reached out to kiss him. Dryfly was amazed at how good it made him feel. It gave him butterflies and made him feel all warm inside. Yes? Dryfly wanted to say the magic words, "I love you," but he couldn't seem to come out with them. "I'd better be going," he said. "There's no great hurry. Dad won't mind as long as I don't stay too long." "I know, but it's getting late, and I'm really glad you could come back to dinner tonight, Dryfly. It was good food, and I really think I should be going now." "Relax, Dryfly. It's only early." Dryfly didn't want to go. He would have sat beneath that pine tree with Lillian all night, but he was getting terrible cramps in his abdomen. The Helen MacDonald dosages of cabbage and X-Lax were working hand in hand, and Dryfly wasn't sure whether he needed to let off gas or indulge in a full-scale bout. Either way, he didn't want to do it in the presence of Lillian Wallace. "I really gotta be going," he said. "What for?" Dryfly was too backward and shy to tell her the truth. "Mom wants me home early tonight," he lied. "Oh, well, okay. Will I see you tomorrow?" "Sure." "Will you walk me back to the camp?" "Sure." They stood and started back to the camp. "Want to go on a picnic tomorrow?" Lillian asked. "Sure, if you want." Dryfly was beginning to really suffer, and Lillian seemed to walk so very slow. "It's such a beautiful night," said Lillian. "Look, there's a new moon." "Yep, I love moonlit skies." Lillian squeezed his hand and turned to face him. "I'll be leaving Sunday morning, Dryfly. I'm going to miss you." "I'll miss you too." It was clear to Dryfly that Lillian wanted to kiss again, but he was not sure he could hold on much longer. A particularly vicious spasm coursed through his bowels, forcing him to cross his legs and bend over. He would still not admit to his agony, however. "What's wrong?" asked Lillian. "Nothing. Thought I saw something on the ground." What? I don't see anything. Nothin'. Are you all right, Dryfly? Yep, Dryfly straightened. I'm all right. They moved a few more paces towards the camp. Lillian stopped again. You know, she said, it's too quiet here. You can almost hear the silence. Yeah, but the flies are eating me alive, said Dryfly. I gotta get out of here. That's funny. They're not bothering me at all. Well, they're bothering me. I'll see you later. Kiss me goodnight? Dryfly kissed her quickly. He knew the countdown had started. I'll see you tomorrow, he said, already moving away. Good night. See you tomorrow. Dryfly walked 20 paces, then ran with desperation into the woods. Shadrack sat on the Tooney Brook Bridge until it was too dark for him to see the little trout swimming in the water beneath. Although he was somewhat excited about the events of the day, he kept very still. He did not wave or slap at the mosquitoes, and most of them never found him. Dryfly stole me woman, thought Shadrack. Me own fault, though. Should have kissed her when I had the chance. She'd still be with me if I had have kissed her. Now that I have a broken heart, and I'm blue, yeah, I'm blue. What's a blue lad feel like, I wonder? What's a man to do when he's got a broken heart and blue? Shadrack knew what he had told Dryfly. Shadrack knew that he had told Dryfly he and Lillian were lovers, and that he and Lillian even discussed marriage. Of course I was lying, thought Shad, but it don't matter. I'll have to show signs of a broken heart, even if I don't care anymore. I could tell him I left her for another woman, or I left her because I don't like her cooking, or tell him something. What's keeping him so long? Another hour passed before Shadrack heard Dryfly coming down the path. Beautiful, beautiful brown eyes, beautiful, beautiful brown eyes, beautiful, beautiful brown eyes. I'll never love blue eyes again, sang Dryfly. That you, Dryfly? Dryfly came to an immediate halt. Shad? Yeah, here on the bridge. What are you doing here? Waiting for you. Dryfly carefully approached the little bridge. Dryfly was somewhat worried that Shad might be angry. He wasn't afraid. He felt he'd done nothing wrong, but he wasn't up for a confrontation. He still felt somewhat ill, and his spirits were too good to ruin them with an argument, or whatever Shadrack might have in mind. Where you been all night? Asked Shad. I've been with Bill Wallace. How's you and Lillian making out? You in love with her, Dry? Nah, just sitting up there talking, that's all. An awful lot of talking, Dry. You've been up there all day. Just talking, that's all we were doing. I saw you and Lillian walking down the front holding hands. So where you going? Lyndon Tucker's. Walking down the front holding hands in broad daylight. Good thing I left her when I did. You left her? Didn't she tell you? No. Of course I left her. Good thing too, by the looks of it. Or you'd be holding hands with another man's woman. You think about that, Dry. No, of course you didn't. You didn't think of nothing, do you? You never stopped to think of me and how I might have gotten hurt. Of course I didn't get hurt, 'cause I left the Jesus tramp. But it's a good thing for you that I did. Lillian ain't a tramp, Shad. Of course she's a tramp. Last night, me, tonight you. God knows who tomorrow night. That tramp don't care about us lads. Dry, she's probably up there in the camp right now laughing her head off at you. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't think so, Shad. I saw through her, so I did. No woman's gonna make a fool out of Shadrack Nash. Dryfly didn't like what he was hearing. To Dryfly, Lillian Wallace was not a tramp. To Dryfly, Lillian Wallace was the most refined, wonderful, kind, sweetest girl in the world. I don't care if she laughs at me, said Dryfly. Dryfly's love for Lillian Wallace was the first real possession he'd ever had. He knew it might not be a possession that would hang around for very long, but he was going to enjoy it and make the most of it while it lasted. He did not want to fight with Shad, though. He would let Shadrack and anyone else say whatever they wanted. He would not give up the precious moments he was spending with Lillian. She can laugh and you can say what you want. I don't care, said Dryfly. And you shouldn't care. She'll be gone in a few days and she'll laugh and make fun of you all the way home. Dryfly endeavored to change the subject. What have you been doing all day, Shad? He asked. I've been... You'd never guess who I met up with today, Dry.